Ashley Modisett graduated from the University of North Carolina, as did her husband, Joe. They live in Manhattan, but they have a place to stay here as well. She's a mom of three. She represents a lot of talent and a lot of energy, and we're very thankful that she serves on the board of the North Carolina Study Center and that she's willing to do something very special, and that is speak on her birthday.
I'm supposed to tell them.
So before she speaks, I think we should sing happy birthday to her. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ashley. Happy birthday to you.
Woo! Thank you, Bill. That was very unexpected. So, I feel like Manhattan has been well represented today because it turns out that Graham and April live just 2 blocks from me in Harlem. So, I feel like we're having a good representation. So, as Bill said, my name is Ashley Modisett, and it is my joy to be here. It is a birthday gift to myself to be here, being challenged and encouraged with you on our journeys of generosity. This is a journey for all of us, and the purpose of my talk is to really dig into what does it look like to be the living sacrifice that Romans 12, 1 through 2 calls us to be as Christians, and how does that manifest as generosity? And I just want to talk about 4 really practical areas that we have received gifting and resource from the Lord, and we have the opportunity and the privilege to offer it back to Him for His glory. So I want to talk about our time and our talents. I want to talk about our money. I want to talk about our physical assets and our personal belongings on this earth. And then finally, I want to talk about our relationships. And it's been fun to see those touched on already. And what I really want to talk about in the journey of generosity is that in each of these areas that I'll talk about, I'm going to share with you, and you can laugh along and cry along with me, the praises and the pitfalls, because it is a journey. So I just want to encourage you as we go through this to really think to yourself as I'm sharing, what resource has the Lord given me in this area? And what is He calling me to do to give it back to Him? But first, I want to read Romans 12, 1 through 2, just so we have that as the basis. And feel free to pull it up on your phones, look at it yourselves. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all that He has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind that He will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship Him. Don't copy the behavior and the customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So, as I mentioned, and as you've already seen, you're going to hear from so many great speakers today. My job, my role, is just to be the every woman. I want to encourage you in your journey as offering yourself as a living sacrifice. And I want to be as specific as I can. Bill has said, use examples, so I'm going to give it to you. First, time and talents. So I've grouped those together because I find that the way we spend our time reflects that unique gifting of experience and interest and passion and education and talent that the Lord has given us. And it's so interesting with time and talent because you don't hear people say, well, I don't have any talent. But you do hear people say, I don't have any time. And it's so funny because we all have the same allocation of time. The Lord gives us all the 24 hours a day. And what we mean when we say that is really, I've already allocated my time to the things that I feel like are important, and so I don't have any more left. And what I have found in my walk is if I would prayerfully offer my time and talents to the Lord, that He will redirect them for their best effect. And a practical way that I've found to do that is just to simply, regularly, and prayerfully offer my calendar and my commitments to him. And it sounds so easy, but it's actually hard in practice. And I ask myself often, am I waking up each morning and praying through my calendar? Am I praying through the interactions that are actually on my agenda for the day? Am I praying about the outcomes of a meeting? Do I want what God wants, or do I want what I want? Do I care about whether I've reflected Christ to the person I have a meeting with, or the person I'm having a coffee with, or the person that I'm instructing, or my child, or my husband? Or am I more interested in getting my work done, or my purposes fulfilled, or my agenda met? The Lord has shown me that his perfect purposes for my time and talents will be revealed to me if I am open to hearing what he has to say. And so a lot of it has been creating space to hear and to receive his direction on how to spend my time. A couple of years ago, I came across a quote that said, "Are you looking for an achieved ministry, or are you looking for a received ministry?" And that impacted me so deeply, because it really gets to the crux of, where do you think your ministry or your career or your achievements are coming from? Are they coming from you working really hard and making really shrewd decisions and using this extra special talent or gifting that you have? Or are you receiving those opportunities and those achievements from the Lord? And are you really looking to him to do the work that he's called you to do? So just a quick anecdote. One praise that I've had recently that's been very surprising is the Lord has led me to start a prayer group at my children's school. And unfortunately, I often resist what the Lord's calling me into first. And then second, I try to give him a list of reasons why I'm not the right person. And this was no exception to that. I said, I don't consider myself a prayer warrior. I don't have a prayer closet. I don't feel especially gifted in intercessory prayer. I had all this baggage around what that would look like. The Lord is so clear that he was calling me into it. And it has been such a joy to watch him work through this prayer group at my kids' school. It is such a simple thing. It's me leading a group of women in prayer for 1 hour a week. But the fruit from that has been tremendous. Conversations, people coming up to me and other members of the prayer group really wanting to share what's on their heart, asking really profound questions about what they believe, what they're teaching their children. It's been unbelievable the way that God has been glorified through this particular call that he's given me on my time and my talents. And it's been such a reminder to me that the Lord has a perfect plan for what he's put in me. And in fact, he's the only one that knows what he's put in me. I have very little clue what the plans that he has for me. But if I will trust him and follow him into the areas that he's leading me, there will be great fruit to his glory. And this one's been really fun because I can't take any credit for it, because it was not my idea and it's not my gifting. And so anything that happens, he gets all the glory, and it's been so beautiful. The pitfall that I've found is when you listen long enough to get a general sense of what God's doing, but not long enough to really trust him with the whole activity. And what you end up doing is making trade-off decisions with your time or your talents that he doesn't intend you to make. And you end up with a situation like your husband saying to you, "Why does organization X have a flawless strategic plan and our family doesn't have Easter brunch plans?" And you realize, I've probably made a trade-off there with my time and my talents that was not God-honoring. And so again, the space to listen to what the Lord is saying with your time and talents. So what time and talents has the Lord given you, and how can you offer them back to him, to his glory? The second area is money. We often say we don't have any money. Sometimes we don't really have any money. But again, what we mean usually is, I don't have any money left after I spend it on the things that I feel like are really important. And I want to just echo what Todd said. The Christian's choices around money should be puzzling. They should look different. They should cause people to wonder what's going on inside that person that makes them want to spend their money that way. And the puzzling generosity was exactly what I thought about when I thought about the praise. I thought about several different times over the years, whether it would be our workplaces or our churches or nonprofits we support or financial advisors, we would submit paperwork to do a transaction, and they would call us or email us and say, oh, I think there's a typo or there's an error, or I don't think you meant to do that. And we've had to say, yeah, that's what we meant to do. That's what we feel led to do. And there's been a real surprise, a real pause, a real wondering at why. Why would you do that? And I think that even though the left hand shouldn't know what the right hand's doing, the world's watching you. And so if people aren't asking questions about how you spend your money, and it can be something as simple as the fact that you pick up the tab at lunch with your friends, not because you want to pay back, but just because you want to love them well, something should be sparking their question about how you spend your money. The pitfalls are when the focus is on me, when I am looking for the attention or the regard or a feeling of importance when I give my money. Another pitfall is when I allow people or organizations to become dependent on me, and that gets in the way of them being dependent on Jesus. Another pitfall is when I automatically give what's asked. I've got to take that to the Lord and ask him, is that what I should give, or should I give more, or should I give less? And that's really a conversation. So the generosity, all of our financial resource belongs to God, and the 10% tithe that we often think about is so limiting when you think about the reality that God owns it all. And if our true treasure is in heaven, then we are radically freed up to give our financial resource. And Graham and April are such a great example of that. So what financial resource has the Lord given you, and how is he calling you to give that back to him, to his glory? So the third category is physical assets. And again, everyone in this room has them. It just looks different. And they definitely change over time. It's your clothes, it's your home, it's your belongings. If we're truly motivated to offer ourselves as living sacrifices, then we should see our physical assets as another area of opportunity to offer to the Lord and to seek his objectives for those resources. I think often with our physical assets, we think that they're ours, for our purposes, for us to maximize, for our use alone. And the praise that I've found is God has unbelievable plans for my physical assets that I couldn't have even imagined. It's another example of not being able to think his thoughts or understand his ways. We just have no way to understand God's economy, as Bill says, until we offer it back to him and let him show us what he has. A praise I'll share is 13 years ago when we did purchase this condo in North Carolina, we were living in London, moving back to New York, and we knew it was going to be empty most of the time. And so we reached out to our local church that we went to in college when we were at Carolina and just called them up and said, hey, we have this condo. It's right near campus. It's going to be empty a lot. We would love for you guys to use it. You know, visiting pastors, traveling missionaries, campus events, whatever. I mean, you guys know we're offering it to you. We've got a keyless entry. Just use it whenever you want. And they sent several people over the years. We've had all kinds of people stay there, many of whom we haven't met. And this one couple, though, I want to share with you, they were missionary trainers that were overseas, and they were home for sabbatical for a couple of weeks, and so they stayed in our place. And after their sabbatical, they went back to the Philippines to their post. But as soon as they got back to the Philippines, they had a just tragic family situation. Their son has a chronic pain disability that he had been fighting for a long time, but it had flared up. He had had to leave college. They were still abroad, and they needed a place very quickly for him to stay. So, of course, we offered our place. He stayed there for several months while they went back and forth and, helped him with his medical challenges. And we never met him either, but we got this letter from them afterwards, and they were just so encouraged that the Lord would provide such a perfect provision for their son when their family was going through such a difficult time. And I'll explain why it was so perfect. So their son's condition was such that he had to live on a reverse schedule. So he could not be out in the sunlight because it exacerbated his pain. So he would sleep during the day and be up at night. And only God knew that what he really needed was to be close to medical care, to be in a place that had retail open at night that was walkable, and to be able to have a really dark room to sleep in during the day. And that's what our condo was, because when our kids were little, we had taken one of the rooms and made it crazy dark. We put in blackout shades and blackout curtains for the kids so they wouldn't wake up. And this precious man's parents said that room was such a godsend. That specific room was such a godsend to their son because it was a refuge for him. It was this place of safety and health and wholeness. And we didn't know that, but the Lord knew that at that exact time, that young man would need a place just like what he had given us. And if our offering it back made it available, it just put it on the market. And it was such a joy for my husband and I just to hear the specific way that the Lord would provide. He's an all-seeing and perfectly loving Lord. I'll tell you the pitfalls is when sometimes my husband travels, he travels all the time, but he travels unexpectedly to different locations. And there have been times when there have been people in a home where he has needed to stay and he's had to stay in a hotel. And so we've laughed about it, we've cried about it, but the point is that the resource, the physical assets that the Lord gives you are sometimes for your use, and you need to listen to that because they're blessings that he wants to give you. But oftentimes, they're also resources for other people, and so the offering of those back to him makes them available to be a blessing. So finally, the final category is relationships, and I think this is the trickiest part. Again, if we're truly motivated to offer ourselves as living sacrifices, then we need to prayerfully ask God for his purposes for the relationships he's given us. And I found that my most important role in all relationships is to be watchful for what the Lord is already doing, and then to be willing to play whatever role he's calling me to pursue the work that he's already doing. So I'm entering into work that's already happening. And I've got plenty of room to grow in this area. I will not take up all the time with countless examples that I could share. Certainly, I have been blessed to be God's instrument of change and to be changed in my close relationships with my family and my husband and my close friends. But I've also seen the Lord work in unexpected ways through my relationships. And I want to share one praise that was so interesting over the last couple of years. In kindergarten, my daughter befriended the daughter of a very well-known global thinker and political commentator. And I think Foreign Affairs just named him like the top 10 thinker of the last 10 years. And his daughter and my daughter became good friends. So this family was a non-Christian family. We prayed for them. We took the daughter to church with us. We really invested in them. And from the beginning, we knew the Lord was sort of up to something, but obviously had no idea what it would be. And so that was a pretty standard, school relationship. At about the same time, I got involved in fundraising for International Justice Mission, which is a global nonprofit that does anti-slavery work all over the world. And long story short, I ended up in this thinker's living room on a Saturday afternoon with the founder and CEO of the International Justice Mission, Gary Haugen, for a multi-hour conversation about IJM's work and how this thinker could support that work in different geographies around the world. And as I sat in that meeting, I was so amazed when I thought back of the Lord knew exactly what he was doing to put those two men together, and he knew exactly how he was going to use my relationship with both of them to do that. But what was even more amazing was afterwards, Gary told me, actually, I never told you, but I've been praying for years to have an opportunity to sit in the room and have a dialogue with this thinker. And I said, that's crazy. I mean, who knew that the Lord was going to do that? And I realized that what a gracious way for the Lord to say, I have a perfect purpose for every single relationship. And at any given time, I can be putting my people together, or my people and people who don't know me together, for my glory. I'm doing my work in my way through whoever I choose. And we all need to view each other, and we do view each other as beautiful, perfect creations of God that are endowed with all kinds of gifting and purpose, and everyone has a role. But I think that sometimes we forget how much God can do with a person, and we have no idea when he's going to do it. And so it has been a real awakening for me to, in all of my relationships, be prayerful about and being open to what the Lord might be doing. Pitfalls. When my agenda for a person trumps God's agenda, which I think is very easy to do in a world where we do get caught up in our own agendas and goals. Another pitfall is when people feel like projects instead of humans, when they feel like you're trying to fix them. Another pitfall is when people feel managed instead of seen or loved. Those are misuses of a relationship and not an offering to God. So before I close, I'd just like to be clear. I've talked about time and talents. I've talked about money. I've talked about physical assets. I've talked about relationships. And obviously, we could go on and on with the type of resource that the Lord gives us. But clearly, the greatest resource that a Christian has is the gift of faith. And obviously, this gift and the Holy Spirit, which enables it within us, are what motivate and empower us to offer our full selves back to God. And by talking about these 4 categories, I don't mean to minimize the importance of offering Christ to others. We should always be ready to give the reason for the hope we have, and we should welcome all people to the faith with the generosity that God has shown us in adopting us into his family. But for this specific talk, my challenge to you is, what resource, your faith, your money, your time and your talent, your physical assets, your relationships, and more, has the Lord given you, and how can you offer it back to him for his glory? Thank you.